Hello, beautiful people. It's another time. And this is concise nesting. This is where nesting is made so simple for everybody. Be it a student, a tutor, or a practicing nesting on the ward. We make nesting so simple for you. Okay, today we won't make, without wasting much time, let's jump straight into action. Look at what we call the anatomical position. Now, this refers to a person standing erect with the feet parallel and flat on the floor and facing forward. Eyes directed forward, arms hanging at sides of the body with the palms of the hand facing forward and the thumbs facing outside and fingers pointing downwards. Okay, so this is just a description of what we mean by anatomical position. So what this means is that when a person is standing erect, means he's standing straight with the whole feet on the floor, being parallel to the floor, and then he's looking straight ahead of him or her with the eyes pointing straight in the eye sockets. The arms or the hands are facing naturally or hanging naturally on the body. The palms are facing forward, the thumbs are facing outward, and the fingers are pointing down naturally. So this is the correct description of anatomical position. A typical example is the picture we see over here. So you can see the person is erect with the feet being parallel on the ground. Eyes are pointing forward. The hands are naturally pointing downwards, palm facing straight, and then thumbs are facing outside with the fingers pointing down naturally. So that is that about anatomical positioning or anatomical position. All right. Now let's look at some human directional terms or some terms that come into play. Okay. Now the first one we want to talk about is left. Okay. When you talk about left, you have left and then you have right in anatomy. So left means the left towards the left side of the body. A typical example is left leg, left lungs. Okay. So anything on the left means left. All right. Let's go to right. Towards the right side of the body. You can talk about the right leg or the right lungs, you understand, right hands, right eye, or any other part that is right in the body. So we have the right part of the body and then we have the left side of the body. All right. Now let's look at what you call superior or above. Superior. Superior. So superior simply means when one structure is higher than the other, or on top of another structure. So a structure that is on top of another structure or is higher than the other structure, we term it as being superior to the structure that is beneath it. So a typical example is the liver is superior to the kidney. So in the human body or in the abdomen, you can see the liver is virtually sitting on the kidney. Okay, so liver is superior to the kidneys. Let's look at inferior. Inferior or the lower. When one body is lower than the other, okay? So this is just the opposite of superior. So inferior means the body or a structure that is beneath another structure. So a typical example, we can still use the liver and then the kidney. So you can see the kidney is beneath the liver. So the kidney is inferior to the liver, okay? You can also use the abdomen and the thorax. See, the abdomen is beneath the thorax. So abdomen is inferior to the thorax, whilst thorax is superior to abdomen, okay? So that's the difference. Now, cephalic, that is a structure that is closer or towards the head side. So cephalic simply means towards the head side. Okay, any structure that is closer to the head side, we term it as being cephalic. Any structure that is closer to the tail side of the human body or towards the sacrum of the human body, we call it as caudal. Okay, so this is cephalic. And this is caudal, okay? Towards the tail side. Cephalic means towards the head, caudal means towards the tail side. Now, proximal. Proximal means structure is closer to the point of attachment of the trunk than another structure. So the trunk of the human body is, and you take off the neck, take off the hands from the body, and take off from the waist side downwards. What we get is what we call the trunk, okay? So basically from here downwards to the abdomen side is what we call the trunk. So any structure that is closer to the point of attachment to the trunk means it's proximal, okay? So if you look at the shoulder, it's proximal, or it's closer to the trunk, so that's proximal. Look at the arm, you see it's or far away from the trunk, okay? Because there's a joint here, okay? So it's far away from the trunk. So that way we will term it as being distal. That is leading us to our next word. That is distal or distance. And then we have the proximal. Okay, so any structure that is closer to the attachment of the trunk, we term it as proximal. Any structure that is further away from the point of attachment to the trunk, we term it as distal. Okay, all right. Now the next thing we want to look at is media. Media, okay. So media simply means the midline, okay? Anything towards the midline of the human body. So the midline, talk of dividing the human body into two. So the middle line, any structure that is closer to the middle line is termed as being media, okay? Or any structure that is just in the middle of the human body is termed as media. So we can give an example as being the heart being media to the lines. You know, we have two lines, left and then the right. And then the heart is situated right in between the two of them. So the heart is media to the lungs. Okay. Now let's look at what we call lateral. Lateral means away from the midline of the body. Okay. So any structure that is away from the midline of the body. Arm is lateral to the thorax. Okay. This is the thorax and this is the arm. So it's far away from the thorax. That means, or far away from the midline of the body. So that means it is lateral. Okay. Let's look at what we call anterior and also posterior. Okay, there are two contrasting words. Okay, so anterior simply means the front of the body. Human beings, this is our front. Okay, so the front of the body is anterior, and then the back of the body, we call it posterior. So this is front, anterior is front, posterior means back of the body. All right, let's look at what we call the ventral and also dorsal. Okay, ventral and also dorsal. Another contrasting words, dorsal. Okay, so ventral means towards the belly side. Okay, dorsal means towards the back side. Now let's look at the clear difference between the anterior and then ventral, because it virtually looks the same. Now towards the belly side, no human beings, when you are standing or sitting, your belly is towards your front side, and anterior also means the front side, so virtually it's the same. But then we talk about, when you want to explain it in the animals that crawl, okay, talk of something like a lizard or the snake, you know, the belly side is down, okay, and then the anterior is towards the cephalic side or the head side that is pointing forward. Okay, so the lizard is lying down like this, the belly is down, so that is the ventral side. Then the anterior part is where it's pointing straight ahead of it. Then the dorsal means the back of it, as it's lying down flat, the back is towards the up, okay, and then the tail side becomes the dorsal part. Okay, so it's very technical or very clear. So all right, so let's look at what you call the superficial. Superficial, this is a word we will come across when you start in integumentary system. So superficial is on the surface, or epidermis is superficial to the dermis. A typical example is that. So towards the surface of the skin, that is superficial. All right, let's talk of deep. Deep means anything deeper from the surface of the human body, that is deep. Now let's look at what you call prone. Prone means you are lying with the face facing downwards. Okay, human being, if you are lying down like this, boom, your face is facing down. That is, you are lying in the prone position. Supine means you are lying with the back, with the face facing upward. Okay, so if you lie flat like this with your face facing upward, that is supine position. So know the difference between prone and then what you call the supine. Okay. All right, so these are some of the terms that we will look at. So a typical example is the picture we see over here. The arrow pointing down means inferior, or inferior part of the body, and then the arrow pointing upwards is superior, or towards the head side. All right, superior and then inferior. All right, so another picture showing the lateral and also the medial. So lateral is towards our waist side. All right, so the arrow is pointing away from the midline, and then the medial, the arrow is pointing towards the midline. Okay, so that is lateral and then medial. Okay, so here we have the cranial, being for the cephalic. Okay, any structure that's towards the cephalic. All right, then we have the dorsal, where the red arrow is pointing. I'm talking about the image to my left, and then to you, your right. All right, so that is dorsal and also posterior. Now the anterior and ventral. Okay, so you see it's giving that example, like they're being the same. All right, because anterior is pointing forward, and the ventral is also forward towards the belly side. Caudal means towards the seal. All right. So now let's look at the picture to my right and then to your left, you have the right and then you have the left. There's proximal and also there's distal. All right, so the brachial is closer to the point of attachment to the trunk, so that is proximal, and then towards the wrist side is the distal. Okay, so media is still here, and if you look at the leg, you can see proximal towards the trunk and also distal away from the trunk, and also there's lateral and then medial. Okay, now quickly let's jump into planes of the body. Okay, let's look at the body planes. All right. All right, so planes of the body. Now these are imaginary lines or imaginary surfaces that we use to divide the body into different surfaces. Okay, so they are imaginary lines. We just imagine that if the body is divided from this side to this side, this is how we call it. This is if the body is divided from this angle to this angle, this is how we call it. Okay, now the first thing we will look at is the sagittal. Okay, so the sagittal plane. All right, so this simply means vertical plane that divides the body into left and then right portions. Okay, so when the human body is standing, we can divide it from the midline or from the medial portion. We get the right side and then we get the left side. So that simply means sagittal plane. I'm not saying go and catch somebody and they divide the person into two. What I mean is that imaginary line. So when you imagine that human body is divided into two, the surfaces we get is what you call the planes, and divided into left and then right is what you call the sagittal. Now we can divide this, can be done by dividing the body into two equal parts. That one we call it the mid sagittal plane, and then the body can be divided such that one part is bigger than the other. That one we call it the parasagittal plane. Okay, so we have the sagittal plane and divided into mid sagittal being divided into two equal parts, and the parasagittal divided into two unequal portions or unequal parts. Now the second one we will look at is the frontal or coronal plane. So this simply means dividing the body vertically through, let me take it again. It runs vertically through the body and divides the body into anterior and posterior surfaces. Okay, so anterior being the front side, posterior being the back. So the body can be divided from this angle, and then we get anterior and then posterior. Okay, you get one point. All right. And then the last but not the least that we will look at is the horizontal or cross-sectional or the transverse plane. All right, so the human body can be divided such a way that we have the superior part and then we have the inferior part. So that is cutting it across, that is cross-sectional. So human body is standing, can cut from the waist side. You get the superior organs or the superior part, and then we have the lower organs or the lower parts. So it runs parallel to the ground. Okay, so that about the horizontal plane. So a typical example is the picture we see over here. So we see the sagittal, the blue image. You can see that the body is divided into two equal parts. We get the left side and then we have the right side. Okay, and then the middle line being the pink is divided. That's the frontal. It's divided in such a way that we have the front side and then we have the back side or the anterior and then the posterior. Then look at the transverse. It's cut across, and then we have the superior being the up and then the inferior being the down. Okay. So in the nutshell, today we have looked at what we call the anatomical position, being that human body is standing straight or erect, foot parallel to the ground, face pointing forward, arms standing naturally on the body, fingers pointing downwards, and then the thumb is pointing outside. That is simply the anatomical position. And then we showed an image of it. Then we look at some directional terms like left, right, superior, inferior, cephalic, caudal, proximal, distal, medial, lateral, anterior, posterior, dorsal, superficial, prone, supine, and rest. All right. And then we went forward to look at some images or some pictures that mimic what we are talking about. And then lastly, we look at what we call the planes of the body. You have the sagittal plane, which is divided into two. That is mid-sagittal and then the parasagittal. Meaning that you divide the body into left and right. So divide into two equal parts, mid-sagittal. Divide into two unequal parts, that's parasagittal. You look at the frontal or the coronal plane being dividing the body such that we have the front and then the back being anterior and then posterior. Then we looked at the horizontal being dividing the body across or cross-sectional such that we have inferior and then the superior parts of the body. All right, so this is where we end today's class. Thank you very much for paying attention, and see you again in our next class. Thank you. Bye-bye.